Hello composers, Mike here, and you are watching Studio Time with Mike. And in this episode I will show you how I made this track behind me here, which is a cinematic beat or orchestral hip-hop track if you will. So let's dive in right now. How to make a cinematic style beat, or an orchestral hip-hop track if you want to call it that. Well, I actually have composed and produced an entire track in this style, a hybrid mix between an urban style beat with orchestral instruments in this arrangement. So I'm going to play this from start to finish first, and then I will dive in and show you the parts and sounds I used to make this track. Alright, here we go. Alright, so now I will show you some tips which I used myself to create this hybrid style mix of an urban beat with a cinematic orchestral flavor. So tip 1 is to start with an urban beat, because urban style music like hip-hop really put heavy emphasis on the drum beat. So I went for a vintage style hip-hop kit which sounds like this. So really dirty, gritty vibe. Then I spiced it up with an acoustic drum kit for the cymbals here and the hi-hats, which I also added some saturation to really dirty it up. Then for the final chorus I also added some claps. Whoops. So it sounds like this. So basically the beat is the foundation of the track, which is the case for most beat style music, such as hip-hop. Then tip number 2 is create the hook, because that is a very heavy focus in basically all urban type music. So I made the hook from the bass, which I layered with low orchestral strings, so it sounds like this. And of course, like all hooks, they really grab your attention and then they really stay the same throughout every time you hear it, basically. So you recognize it. So as you can see here, it goes on here. It changes up a bit there, but here is the same as in the beginning. So you really get that hook vibe. Number 3 is to add the orchestral elements. So I have this folder here where I added, first started with the pianos, then some string type pads. Let's listen to the piano, by the way. It's a classic hip hop comp piano. Like that, really simple. And then the chords and harmonies on this pad here in Omnisphere. Of course, with some dynamic variation there, which is more apparent when you see here in the strings part, where I only use the top line, if I remember correctly. Right, that's actually part of the main theme, by the way. Then I just stacked up and layered a lot, which you do with orchestral instruments. So I have this tubas, trombones, horns, and trumpets here, starting with the low end, which basically is the hook again. Continue to build up to this section, which is the chorus. So listen from here, perhaps. And if you listen to that together with all other orchestral elements from here and listen to the chorus. By the way, here is where the main theme comes in. So the brass section really provides the power and low-end grit, where the violas and violins provide the main theme, I think, together with this lush strings patch. And this pad is basically the chords, as well as the chords are also on this comping track here. So that's tip 3. Tip 4 is to add the vintage sounds, or the urban sounds, or whatever you want to call them. So I went for a new plugin I just got, which is called Heat Up 3, which looks like this, and it's basically a Rompler style plugin, which means it is a sample player that you have all kinds of categories in here, which you can load up. Like you can see lots, 808s, arps, basses, bells, brass, choir, strings, keys, and lots of stuff. And what all have in common, by the way, it's thousands of sounds, I think, in this plugin. Really great plugin by Initial Audio that I just got because I wanted to add that urban hip-hop style touch to some of my music. And what I love about it is that you have that instant urban vibe, because it sounds dirty and more vintage in its style. So it's not that super authentic, natural sounding violins, but rather that gritty, old school sound. So I started with this brass power patch. Just to beef up some of, not the deepest low end, but the lows at least. And then I have this brass riff, which is a rhythmic ARP gated type patch. And then another here is a keys, electric keys type patch with some delay, I believe. So really simple, just adding some flavor. And then the main theme is mimicking exactly what the violins and violas played for the main theme. So here. As you can hear, it sounds more synthy, and it has that like swiping, panning effect and vibrato that sounds not as authentic as a real string instrument, but it really has that grit factor. And then finally a high lead for the final part of the second chorus. So basically that takes us to tip number 5, which is to layer for a hybrid mix, which I did here with the main theme, layering what the real strings did over here. So you add that hip-hop vibe. So together it all becomes very clear that this is a cinematic style beat with hip-hop influences. Because as you can see, I don't know where I put it, but sometimes I use some extra distortion, like the fat effects in Logic here. You can use whatever you want, not on that track, but I have a supercharger here with some saturation or some character to make it warmer. Some extra compression. You can basically go more all in when it comes to the urban and vintage and, you know, these types of sounds, because they are going to be a hybrid with the natural orchestral elements. Subscribe now and watch a lot more videos on composing music, producing music, sound design, Logic Pro X and much more. I'll see you in the next video, my friends.